Hello, everybody. It is Friday, and it doesn't feel like Friday, but it is Friday. It is the 27th of March. Where did March go? March of 2020 may have been the weirdest month in the history of my life. Um, yeah, March is pretty much over. We got a couple more days next week. We got this weekend, which does not feel like a weekend. But yes, it's Joe. This is Budget Boss, and we are in day 5 of my COVID campaign for financial awareness. And today is all about emergency funds. So I want everyone to understand the importance of emergency fund. I'm going to go over how to create an emergency fund. I'm going to give you tips and tools to do that. And honestly, at a time like this, emergency funds are huge. Are huge. So if you're following me live on IG, you can go into my profile there, and tagged in that is my Facebook link. So like me on Facebook so you can actually get the tools that I'm sharing with everyone, and you can see the full broadcast as opposed to just me going live. I'm going to be sharing this post in about an hour once I'm done recording, so then you can see it there as well. So, starting an emergency fund, but first things first, as we do every day, we're going to go into a market update. So, again, reason why I'm doing a market update every day is because the markets are going a little haywire lately, and I want people to understand what the situation is and how they should be reacting to it. So, today, we had 3 straight days of gains. Three. In fact, we had a bit of a market rebound. We're over 12% gains in the past 3 days. Now we are in the red again. So what does that tell you? Well, if you look right below, you'll see that it says an emergency rate cut. So what happened is the Bank of Canada lowered rates again, basically to almost nothing, 50 basis points. So the key rate is down to 25 basis points, which is 0.25%, which is essentially nothing, zero, almost, right? So what that signals is that there is little confidence right now. They're doing that to spark growth. They're doing that to spark lending, to get people moving the economy. When rates are high, people don't move as much. When rates are low, people move money more often and more fluidly. So that's why they dropped the interest rate. And if you notice, the interest rate has dropped, I think, about 3 times in the past month. And right now, it's about as low as it'll get. So, after 3 straight days of gains, we're going to have a day of negativity. TSX is down, the Dow Jones is down, S&P 500 and NASDAQ are both down. That doesn't mean that this confidence in the markets the past few days will not continue. All it means is that we're giving back some of the gains that we had the last few days. If it stays like this, we're giving back yesterday's gains, but we still have the gains from the days before. Big news for you, or big story for you to take from this, is that we're still sticking to the plan. We're not selling at this point. The day traders are the ones who can worry about the day-to-day. We worry about the long term, and don't panic. This is not a position where, okay, our gains are all going to be gone. They may, we don't know. But at the same time, though, that still doesn't change what we're doing. If we're shifting into more aggressive funds to capture the growth when the markets do come back, that's one thing. But if you are in aggressive funds, we do not scale back. It's a good time to get in the market. It's not a good time to get out of the market. Again, we don't buy high and sell low. We buy low and we sell high. So let's wait till our markets get back to where they should be. Is that going to take a while? We don't know. It might take a month. It might take a year. It might take a couple years. But if your time horizon is correct and your risk tolerance is correct, you will recover. I have clients buying in right now, and when the markets get back to normal, they're actually going to be ahead of the game. So that is a good reason why you should have cash on hand, which leads me to today's topic, emergency funds. So, first things first, go to the combo expenses worksheet. A lot of people have been downloading this. It's a great tool to show you where your money's going every month, and it leads into this topic of emergency funds. Emergency funds are so important because what happens, emergencies happen, and you need to have cash on hand to take care of those emergencies. What's an emergency? Job loss, car breaking down, water heater, anything to do with the house. Kids have emergencies, emergency dental, emergency whatever might come up. as you get older and as time goes on, the cost of emergencies grow. I remember when I was younger and I couldn't really pay my bills, and $200 was an emergency. Now $200 is a blip on the radar. I can cash flow it, but the emergency that could come is much, much bigger. Car breaking down or stuff like that. So we need to make sure that we have cash on hand. And how you can get organized is by downloading the combo expenses worksheet. I'm going to have that tagged in my bio here or tagged in the comments here, and you can check that out. A lot of people have been downloading it. It's basically a spreadsheet that can help you organize your monthly finances and where you spend your money on a regular basis. So let's dip into emergency funds a little bit. And at a time like this, we actually can start to see the importance of emergency funds. So this is the relevant retirement step one, the budget, right? And I dip into the importance of cash flow and having a positive cash flow. And I've talked about budget the last couple of days. And the reason I talked about budget the past couple of days is we need to create a surplus. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see it a little bit better. But the importance of creating a surplus is evident. We need to have more money at the end of the month than we spend. So for instance, if you make $4,000 a month, you cannot spend $4,500 a month. Very simple. If you make $4,000 a month, you need to be hovering around the $3,000 or $3,200 spent a month, because the $800 extra will give you that buffer. And one of the things that we need to create with this surplus is an emergency fund. And that's why budgeting is so important, because this surplus is going to dictate your success and help you build the emergency fund. So this is why budget's first on the list, and why you got to focus on the budget and saving money where you can and do what you can do. When you live paycheck to paycheck and you're not putting extra money away into a slush fund, and I showed you how to I organize my money yesterday, and the reason I do that is because I want to build up a bit of a buffer in my checking account, so when bills come out, it never dips below a certain amount, and that amount for me is more than zero. That amount for me is actually $10,000, and I keep that there because that gives me around 4.5 months of emergency savings in terms of bills. So when money comes out, money comes in, I'm never dipping below that amount. In times where if there was a job loss or whatnot, I can use that to make sure my bills still get paid. So that's why you're always trying to create a surplus and then have that amount go up and up and up, and then that turns into emergency fund. Now, what I told people yesterday is that the best place to put your emergency fund is actually in your savings account, not in your tax-free account. Reason being is because you want it easily accessible, and second, and most importantly, you want your tax-free savings account to be used to its full potential, which is actually to be invested in something. And that's something I'm going to go over more next week when I start talking about investments in a bit more thorough way. So creating this surplus, the long-term effects of it, I stress the importance of a surplus, but why this is going to lead to success, because you're constantly building funds. You're constantly building that cash buffer, and then you can drive that money into places that's more useful for you. So the big thing about it that people don't worry about is, okay, step one of the Dave Ramsey 7 baby steps, which I fully endorse. Step one is creating a $1,000 emergency fund. Now, I remember when I saved up my first $1,000 emergency fund. It felt like I was rich. And for me, like, that amount was like the biggest thing in the world. It was difficult. It took me a few months to do that, a few months of just grinding it out and trying to get that money together. And then after that, paying off debt was huge. So the thing about the emergency fund that's super useful, I'm sorry, I'm going to adjust something here. The thing about the emergency fund that's super useful is the fact that you can build your cash flow as you're going along. And if you can only put $200 towards it, at the end of the year, you'll have $1,200 in this emergency fund. And you just keep going and going and going. And that's where finding ways to save money is so important, because that's where this money can be directed. So the big thing about it, what you have to do is actually treat this like you're working out. You're going to see gains over time. It's not going to happen right away. And I have a post I'm going to share with you about starting your emergency fund. Again, I shared in this the 50 budget hacks for 2019, and those apply to today as well. So I'll put that in there as well. So let's go into starting an emergency fund, 5 easy steps. So the 5 easy steps, and I released this post in 2017 in September, 5 easy steps to starting an emergency fund. So determine what you need, or more accurately, what you can do. So an emergency fund, basically, they talk about 3 to 6 weeks or 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So that's why the budget sheet's so important. The budget sheet, I've determined that 3 months or 1 month of living expenses for me is $3,000. So 3 months of $3,000, that means I need $9,000 in my emergency fund. So this is roughly me right here. For 6 months, I need $18,000. Now that is a lot of money to someone who has no money or no emergency fund. But you can see how this can add up real quickly and why you need to focus on building this, because it will take time. And to determine how much you actually need, it's huge, right? So when I actually wrote this post, I didn't have a car at the time. So we've added another 700 or so in expenses per month, roughly, and plus savings. So that added that to it as well. So the biggest thing that I want people to understand is that it's a work in progress, and that number is going to seem daunting to begin with, but the big part about it is that you know what you're striving towards. Start off with 1 month. So if it costs you $2,000 a month to live, to get your basic necessities, start off with 1 month, try saving $2,000, and then go for 2 months, and then go for 3 months. You're not putting this money into a investment account. You're keeping this money in your savings account, and it's gaining simple interest. This money needs to be available to you. If you have to dip into it because an emergency actually happens, then you just start again. Is it frustrating? Yes, but you got to do it. So you can see how it can get quite large, especially for a family who actually needs much more. If a family with 3 children, you could see they probably need about $4,000 or $5,000 a month to survive. I'm a single person and I need $3,000 to survive on a monthly basis. So in that situation, you could see how this would really, really add up. But at the same time, though, hopefully with those couples, or if it's someone on their own, that they are actually investing money or saving money on a regular basis, and they have a larger income to match that. So it's going to seem tough, but you can do it. The biggest thing, reduce expenses if needed. So if needed, you can reduce expenses, period. It will be needed, so just reduce expenses. Look for things at any given time. You should be looking at ways you can slim down your budget. Go over your Visa bills or your bank statements and see things that are unnecessary in there. And now's a great time to do it because we're actually not out spending money like we were. We're at home. Hopefully you're not home ordering things off Amazon like crazy, and that will kill you. But the big thing about it is that we're not out spending money on a regular basis. So this is a perfect time to see how last month compares to this month, and see what you've been spending money on before that you're not spending on now that you're living without, and it's quite fine. The one thing for sure I know people aren't doing is dining out, and that's a huge one, or going out to pubs and stuff like that. So the big thing about it is just make sure you're actually constantly trying to reduce your expenses. And I say if needed, but it's not if needed, it's needed. So do it. And I have a link there to 25 things people waste money on from Lifehack. The big thing as well, focus on maintaining a positive cash flow. So if you maintain this positive cash flow, the surplus of that cash flow can go into building the emergency fund. So yeah, it's just a more complicated way, positive cash flow, of just not spending more than you make. Do not spend more than you make. That's very simple. And this is only possible when you have emergency savings. So the big thing about it, if you're maintaining this positive cash flow, emergency savings will build naturally. Any savings you can create is dead to you. So if you do get to that $1,000 level, like step 1 of the Dave Ramsey's baby steps, that savings does not exist to you. You are not using that willy-nilly and just spending it wherever. You are keeping that, and that's your new zero balance. New zero balances are huge to me. You find a number that you've built up in your savings, and you keep that as a zero balance. When you get to the next plateau, so you get to $2,000, that is zero. You get to 3, 4, 5, that is zero to you. Money goes in, it doesn't dip below that. If you treat it like that, and that is your own personal overdraft account, that will actually create huge amounts of success for you in terms of creating emergency savings and your personal financial fitness in general. The next one, do not stop once you hit your goal. So for instance, emergency savings, in my opinion, is a lifelong battle. It's something that you're constantly to be building. So if you get to a certain point with your income where you can dedicate monthly on a monthly basis to emergency savings, and you hit that $5,000 goal or that $10,000 goal or that $30,000 goal, keep going with it, because then you're creating more of a surplus that you can actually take advantage of opportunities with later. And that's why hitting the goal for your or emergency savings and putting more away all the time is super useful, and it's a lifelong battle because you want to be able to build up this cash surplus to take advantage of the market in times like this and stuff like. And maybe if you build up high enough, take advantage of buying, say, a rental property or certain things in later in life that are actually going to help you build more and more and more wealth. And that's why having cash is a huge thing. Having cash on hand is a huge thing. So the real reason for a rainy day fund, this is a post I released in 2018. It helps you manage your cash flow, right? So you know at any given time you have this money in savings, and then you can use it towards your bills, and you also know that you're not dipping below a certain amount at any given time. So the big thing about it that people don't understand is that when emergencies come up and you're not actually able to take care of them, it's because you didn't plan properly. Now, a lot of people will use their credit card or a line of credit as an emergency fund. We need to get out of the habit of doing that. Credit card or line of credit, what they are used for is to cash flow things on a weekly basis. Now, I'm not of the ilk where I'm not going to say never use a credit card. I know there's some people like that. Dave Ramsey, for one, thinks that no one needs a credit card. That's fine. I get it. I'm not against what he thinks. It's just not the right thing for me. I use a credit card all the time. I make sure I pay it off that month or that week or even sometimes that day. So it helps you do that, but it should not be your emergency fund. You shouldn't be putting things on your credit card that you just can't afford in general. And it helps you control debt with the emergency fund. So if you do end up having to use your credit card for something, then your emergency fund can cash flow it into there. So you're not going to have situations where you're in massive amounts of debt. You are your own line of credit. You borrow from yourself and then pay yourself back. Does it suck when you have to buy something out of your emergency fund that costs you $3,000 and depletes your emergency fund? Yes, but then you can take time over the next little while to build that up again, right? And it's better to borrow from yourself than to borrow from the banks, and that's for sure. That's 100%. And again, I mentioned it before, so opportunities. Right now is a great time to be jumping in the market. There's stocks that have value to them that have lost value because of what's going on. That's one thing you could be doing with your emergency fund. The big thing about the emergency fund that people don't understand and that they need to understand is that it gives you peace of mind, and it gives you the mentality where you feel confident in your everyday life as things come up, or if you have to take a day off work or a week off work or a month off work, or God forbid something happens where you lose your job. You know you have that backup. You know you have that confidence. Right now there's people that are out of work, could be out of work permanently, but hopefully it's only maybe a month. And in that situation, the ones with emergency savings are able to cash flow through this period, and then when they get back to work, replenish that emergency fund and get themselves to a point where they're back to level ground. The ones without one, it's a huge problem. And when you actually look at why the government of Canada and the government of America are jumping in to help people out, is because they don't have these savings, and there's a lot of people who are living on the borderline of being able to take care of their bills on a regular basis, let alone put money in an emergency fund. So the big thing about it, emergency funds are crucial. The real reason for it is to gain that confidence, have the confidence in your money. To build it, you need to build up that cash flow, and that's why the budget is so important. Positive cash flow. Use the surplus to build up the emergency fund. Know how much you need. First of all, 3 months, 6 months, keep going after that. My goal for me is a year's worth of emergency savings, and I've hit that point, so that's why that was important to me. That money is cash on hand that I have to utilize. And my goal is to keep going with it after that, right? So that's why that's super important to me. one way you can get to emergency fund, and here's why side hustles, in my opinion, are so important. To pick up a side hustle for 1 year to build your emergency fund, to me, that's an admirable thing. So I'm going to share a post here about side hustles. Some of them don't pertain to right now, specifically because of the health crisis we're in right now. But when this is all said and done, maybe look to pick up a side hustle. And there's ones that you can do at home as well. So that will help. So I talk about ride sharing, Uber or Lyft. That's something you can do a couple hours a day. House sitting, pet sitting, being a barista at Starbucks, and they have a health plan, right? So once they reopen and things get going again, doing yard work for people, often the elderly like to maintain a nice yard and they're willing to pay you for it, but they just can't do it on their own. Or people who aren't home that often, such as myself, would pay someone to landscape for them. Be an organizer so you can actually help people organize their homes, like a home organizer. Rent out your space. If you have an extra room in your house, that is huge. That can help you pay your mortgage down quicker or help mitigate your rent costs. Personal training is one that a lot of people are doing, and that seems to be moving online right now, so that's a good thing. If that's something that you're interested in and you have the enthusiasm and wherewithal to do it, jump on it. Yoga, meditation instructor. This is something I wish I did on a regular basis, not an instructor, just yoga and meditation itself. But yeah, so that is something that if you do that on your own and you can help teach other people to do that, that's an amazing thing. If you know a second language, which I wish I did, translator. If you're musically inclined or you're intellectually inclined, and you could be a tutor for music or in general for math, sciences, English, whatnot, helping people do that. Writing is something I love to do. So writing for blogs, writing content. They're constantly hiring for stuff like that. This one's not applicable right now, but bartending and serving is a great way to make money on the side in a short amount of time. And it's cash money for the most part, so you can actually build your cash flow and stack that towards your emergency fund. I did that for 15 years, and I do not regret it one bit. I made a lot of good money off of that and met a lot of good people doing that. And cleaning, which if you are a neat freak, put those talents and put that anal way of your life to use by cleaning, helping people clean homes. So I'm also going to release here Dave Ramsey posts about 4 quick ways to build your emergency fund, so you know it's just not content coming from me, but Dave gives you some information about that. And you can just do these quick things. Sometimes if you have a 3-paycheck month, use that third paycheck. You're used to getting 2, use that third one to build up your emergency fund or to pay off debt. And that's why you need to build this surplus. You need to pay off the debt. You need to build an emergency fund. You need to protect your family. You need to pay off your invest your money. You need to grow your money. You need to retire on time. It all works in a continuous cycle and a continuous circle. So make sure that you're looking at that. And I'm going to release that. What I want people to understand is this is the economic response plan that Canada's releasing. They say over the next 10 days, this money's going to start to be released. So hopefully we're all going to be okay for April's bills or the 1st of April, if that's rent or mortgage payment from you. But in here, make sure that if you need the mortgage deferral, you understand the ramifications of that. And I'm going to be talking about that a bit more. If you need the mortgage deferral, do that. If you need help, look to help. Go get EI. Apply right away. They waived the waiting period, so go get the help that you need because you got to take care of your 4 walls, as my man Dave Ramsey would say. So you can reach out to me and follow me and on the Facebook page, but here's my contact information on my website. You can scroll down and book a meeting if you like. You can add yourself to the email list and get email notifications from me on new topics that are coming up. The Facebook page is the best place to be because I can share more content and more resources on there because of the platform. But I'm also on Instagram as well and good old Twitter. So the profile on Twitter. So the good thing about it, you can reach me in multiple different places, and every video, including this one, is up on my YouTube page. So go to my YouTube page if you want to backtrack and see these videos. One more check at the markets before we leave. The markets are still down, and they're going to be down probably for the whole day, but no need to fret. It's the end of the week. Oftentimes, at the end of the week, people will sell off. Day traders will end their buying cycles for the week, and that's just something that happens quite often. But again, we've had 3 straight days of gains, so we're probably due for a down day. Cutting interest rates adds to that. It's a situation where people are actually pricing in the interest rate cuts and looking at what the markets may or may not be for the next little while. The last 3 days, we had gains based on stimulus plans that have been put into place. So now maybe it's a reaction to the fact that these stimulus plans have been put into place. Will the markets still be able to maintain a positive note? Today, obviously not, but it's not the end of the world. We are going to move on forward, and we're not making dramatic choices at this time. So again, thank you for tuning in. This video is going to be on Facebook, and I'll be sharing it throughout the weekend. And if you do have any questions, shoot me a message. My email's at joe@budgetboss.ca. Okay? Have yourself a great day.